Representative Louie Gohmert wants to know that if he could fix climate change by literally changing the orbit of the moon.
And I understand from what's been testified to the Forest Service and the BLM, you want very much to work on the issue of climate change. I was informed by the immediate past director of NASA that they have found that the moon's orbit is changing slightly, and so is the Earth's orbit around the sun. We know there's been significant solar flare activity. Um, and so, is there anything that the National Forest Service or BLM can do to change the course of the moon's orbit or the Earth's orbit around the sun? Obviously, that would have profound effects on our climate.
I would have to follow up with you on that one, Mr. Gohmert.
Yeah. Well, if you figure out a way that you in the Forest Service can make that change, I'd like to know.
Okay. Well then. I mean, how do you really answer that question? You know? And again, what does this have to do with human driven climate change? And that's really the issue. Okay. Look, the climate, of course the climate has changed. Over the entire eons of the planet's existence, of course the climate has changed. Yes. What the problem here, the thing that we're talking about with climate change is the climate that has been affected by human activity. For example, industrial processes, right? Agriculture, just society itself, vehicles, agriculture, fossil fuels, anything that adds an additional amount of carbon to the atmosphere that wouldn't have been there before through, of course, the burning of the combustion of fossil fuels. Not only that, but of course you have the effects of deforestation, mass deforestation to make room for grazing, for agriculture production, as well as cities, towns, population, things like that. All those things do have an effect on the climate. Personal choices have an effect on the climate. And of course, much more importantly, though, societal and political choices have an enormous effect on the climate, you know, when it comes to governments. And really, all this combined have really driven the rate of change to become too rapid, so fast. This is a process that would normally take, you know, tens of thousands of years. And, you know, major changes can be brought in, of course, by, you know, large natural disasters, volcanoes, etc., and things like that. But like, we have taken that natural rate of change that would have happened over tens of thousands of years in either direction, and we have accelerated it within the last 200 years to an insane amount, to an amount that we haven't seen in our brief existence on this planet. Now, again, we're in a relatively climate stable, you know, our species developed during a relatively climate stable epoch period, right? We are rapidly destabilizing that, and that's going to have profound effects on society and our species overall. And that's kind of the problem here. Okay? This rapid advancement has had some serious consequences for the climate, and now that we know that there are consequences, of course, we are actually smart enough, we are technologically advanced enough to actually start to mitigate those so that we can stay in this relative sort of comfort zone for as long as we can for our society to continue to exist and progress. Now, to Louie Gohmert, he's like, no, let's not do the things that we should do. Let's do the things that we can't do, like moving the moon. Yes, let us move the moon or the orbit of the Earth. Look, knowing some of the people, again, they're not sending their best, okay? Knowing some of the people that Louie Gohmert allies with and talks with, if they were in charge of such a project, if our government were in charge of such a project, we would probably accidentally, if we found a way to do it, yeet ourselves into the sun. Like, oh, oops, messed that one up. Sorry. right into the sun. Terrible. But anyway, and again, we wouldn't actually solve the problem. All right. That's not to say that, of course, science hasn't actually looked at the effect of the Earth's position to the sun. That is just normal scientific processes, right? And let me give you an example. Research conducted by Serbian scientist Milutin Milakovic suggested that changes in Earth's position relative to the sun are a strong driver of Earth's long-term climate and are responsible for triggering the beginning and the end of glaciation periods, or otherwise known as ice ages. So again, that's part of the natural cycle of the Earth, and how our position, of course, and our tilt or wobble, whatever, of our planet really impacts long-term climate trends. But again, that's talking tens of hundreds of thousands, even millions of years. What we're doing today with our climate right now is we're doing rapid changes, too rapid for our species to be able to adapt. That is the problem. What would normally take tens of thousands of years will happen by the end of the century. And of course, those results are massive sea level rise, droughts, extreme weather events, mass migration, etc., etc. Now, we can work to mitigate that, but we have to work fast and we have to work hard. That is doable. Moving the moon or moving our own orbit is not possible with our current technology and would be really stupid to try. But again, speaking of stupid, well, Gohmert has a history of saying dumb things, especially about the climate. For example, back in 2015, Gohmert said of more carbon dioxide, CO2 in the air, that that'd be a good thing because, well, more plants. Ignoring, of course, the obvious effects of the greenhouse effect, which would mean the drying out of other areas and the complete shifting of our delicate climate as it is. So no, it's not going to just make more plants. It's going to make plants in different places, in deserts and places that are already warm. Insanity, right? There's more. He was interviewed in 2016 by Steve Bannon of Breitbart News, whether climate change should be a top priority. Here's what he said. It seems like when you hear somebody say over and over again that climate change is our biggest problem, they don't know that the climate has been changing a lot worse over the millennia of mankind. And last month, in an interview with Fox Business, he said, we can't do anything substantive about the climate change right now when the moon's orbit is apparently changing some. The Earth's orbit is changing some, according to NASA. Yeah, okay, that's true, but that doesn't mean that you can't do anything about climate change. So here's what's funny about this entire thing. I mean, when you don't look at the doom of our species, okay? They are trying everything except for the most obvious solution, obvious answer, and that's to burn less fossil fuels, to transition to more, cleaner alternative energy. And it's because, look, a lot of politicians, Gohmert included, get paid by fossil fuel companies in campaign donations. You just got to follow the money. But the interesting thing about Gohmert is that that's not even his top contributor. It really isn't. I really do think that Louie Gohmert is a believer. He is so deeply stupid. He doesn't even get that much in bribes. I think it was like, what, $13,000 for last year? So I think that in some respect, he believes his dumb takes. I'm just saying. He thinks that there's nothing we could do, so why not even try? Why even try? Because then corporations will lose out on money, and we can't have that. And his whole, answer was him essentially mocking people who might actually have solutions that we could do right now to reduce emissions. And so it just really shows that he's such a terrible guy and complete and utter moron. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.